Welcome to Today Matters, our short devotional in the Word of God. And we are in the book of 1 Peter. We're looking at some really difficult themes. And last time I was with you, I talked about that wonderfully unpopular word called submission. And Peter talked about wives, and then he turned his attention to husbands, and he said this in 1 Peter 3:7. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. The way that I act towards my bride can affect my relationship with God, and everything we do is really lived out first at home. And it could be said that how you treat others will either help or hinder your prayers. So now we've used the more common word that really we use today, we hear this a lot, is unselfishness. That's really a replacement for the word submission. And as you look through this passage and other passages in the Bible about relationships and really what makes them work, I want to continue by giving you these areas of advice about beginning to develop this trait of unselfishness from someone who's on the journey with you. Okay, so understanding the principle versus working it out, doing it in our own lives is a totally different thing. I can understand that I need to do something, but then I still can't do it sometimes, or I don't do it. And for many people, exercise is one of those examples. But it's more difficult to actually do what we know we should do. So we started by saying, number one, when we looked at why should I be unselfish, the first reason I gave you last week was because selfishness blocks my prayers. Today I'm going to give you the second reason why we need to be unselfish according to Peter in the Word of God. I need to be unselfish. If you want to write this down, if you're a note taker, I think it'd be helpful for you to remember it. I need to be unselfish because selfishness causes conflict. It causes conflict. Look what James says in James chapter 4, verse 1. It says, do you know where your fights and arguments come from? They come from the selfish desires that war within you. It's the source of conflict in your home. You take your arguments and your conflicts and you boil them all down. And at the root of any of them, you'll find that someone, somewhere, somehow is being selfish. Now, of course, in your arguments, it's always the other person being selfish, right? But somewhere, someone is being selfish. In order to bring a new sense of peace to your home, remember this, your selfishness will cause conflict in your home. You may have it down so that people don't argue with you right away, but your selfishness is building bitterness in those around you. And you're bringing an atmosphere of negativity and selfishness that you don't want. Your selfishness will absolutely cause conflict at work, in your neighborhood, on the road when you're driving, you name it. Selfishness does nothing good for you. The only time you can be selfish is when you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks are deployed. They tell you to put yours on first. So remember that, okay? But the reason is so that you can help others who are around you. So that's the only time you're supposed to be selfish, all right? So it's being selfish so you can be unselfish. That's the whole idea. So why do I need to be unselfish? Number one, it blocks my prayers. Number two, being selfish blocks my prayers. Number two is being selfish causes conflict. Let me tell you a third one. Because unselfishness is the secret to change. Peter writes to wives and he encourages them. Listen to what he says. Be submissive, he says. That's be unselfish, so that if your husbands don't believe the word of God, they may be won over. In other words, that they may be changed without words, but by the behavior of their wives. See, change is important in any relationship. I mean, it's natural. It's healthy to want to change in our relationships. That's what growth is all about. So how do we make change happen? How many of you have tried to push or argue somebody into making a change? I mean, just raise your hand. How many of you have found that that doesn't work? What does work to help people change? I mean, that's the question. And the answer is unselfishness. It is the most powerful tool that we have at our disposal to encourage other people to grow and to change. Jesus Christ was the most unselfish person who ever walked the face of the earth, and he gave his life unselfishly to others. And look at how many people his unselfishness has changed. In your own life, who's had the most impact on you when it comes to change in your life? Selfish people? Of course not. It's been people who have acted unselfishly towards you. people who have helped you to grow and to change. Unselfishness is the secret to change. I'll close with this. If you really want to see someone change, you have to realize you can't force anyone to change. What you can do is follow the example of Jesus Christ, who, although he was God, decided to live life on this earth unselfishly by leaving us an example of how you can change other people by praying and living unselfishly.